Good morning and welcome back to Venture Daily. On today's show, under pressure from Trump's tariff threats, Apple just announced it's pouring another $100 billion into U.S. manufacturing to protect iPhones and its bottom line.
And the company announces its new American manufacturing program to reshore Apple's supply chain and boost U.S. production of critical components. I'm Josiah Simons.
I'm Jackson Fordyce. It's Thursday, August 7th. Let's get you smarter before your first meeting. Apple is committing another $100 billion to U.S. manufacturing under pressure from the Trump administration to shift more of its production stateside.
The announcement, which includes a new American manufacturing program, follows a previous $500 billion pledge that featured investments in AI, advanced chip making, and regional infrastructure. President Trump has publicly demanded Apple bring iPhone production to the U.S. and threatened 25% tariffs on iPhones if it doesn't.
Despite this, analysts say U.S.-based iPhone manufacturing is unrealistic due to supply chain complexity and costs with prices potentially soaring to $3,500 per phone. The new investment appears to be Apple's way of appeasing the White House while avoiding the most drastic operational shifts.
Apple CEO Tim Cook attended the White House event, which is being seen as a strategic olive branch aimed at gaining tariff relief.
And so far, Apple has been absorbing hundreds of millions in tariffs while also expanding production in India, a move Trump has criticized.
Trump's latest move, doubling tariffs on India to 50%, citing its ties with Russia, while continuing to exert pressure on Apple and global supply chains. Here's some photos from Apple's launch of its new American manufacturing program.
What a sick picture.
This is on their website. So here's in, what is that, Corning.
Oh, no way.
The glass manufacturing. I think that they just invested, I think 2.5 billion or 1.5 billion, one of those two, in a new manufacturing like iPhone glass. All here in
Corning.
Yeah, in Corning.
Wow, we have a good buddy of ours who's from Corning, New York.
From Corning, small town in upstate New York.
Wow.
Here's Sherman, Texas.
Okay.
This is additional tool installations at Texas's instrument facility in Lehi, Utah, and then new facility in Sherman, Texas. So I don't know. This might be Utah, but
okay. That looks like Utah to me.
Here's Houston.
H-Town, baby. That's where I'm from.
Yeah. We've got also Houston.
H-Town.
And then, of course, Austin, Texas.
Where we live.
And you got the fellow wearing his AirPods Max. Is that what those are called?
AirPod Maxes.
AirPod Maxes, yes.
Well, for more on this story, I called an old friend of the show again. Give it up for Rob Biederman. There he is. He looks good.
Daddy.
In the back. What?
My pleasure. I'm Rob Biederman, managing partner of Asymmetric Capital Partners.
For my first question for Rob, Apple's planning another $100 billion of investment in U.S. manufacturing under pressure from the White House. Is this a genuine reshoring strategy or just smart political optics from Tim Cook?
Look, I think every company that makes anything physical is thinking about global supply chains right now, as we obviously saw during the COVID-19 pandemic and the associated supply chain disruptions after. I think companies are realizing whether it's good public policy or not, and it does seem to be good public policy, being able to have a supply chain that is far more resilient to the most important consumer base in the world is not only good public policy, but I think good business strategy.
But here's the thing, right? So moving iPhone production to the United States isn't just expensive. Analysts have said it's borderline impossible. So Apple's supply chain is a miracle of modern logistics already. It's deeply rooted in Asia. The US doesn't have the supplier ecosystem, the engineering base, or the mega factories that can churn out millions of iPhones with the kind of precision Apple is demanding.
And right now, Apple's biggest assembly plants in China are entire cities. iPhone City in Zhengzhou has schools, it has dorms, hospitals.
Right.
It's a self-contained industrial machine. Replicating that in the US, though, you're talking billions of dollars in years of ramp up, even with automation.
Yeah, so that's why Apple's been shifting some US-bound iPhone production to India, which Trump isn't thrilled about either. Analysts say a US-built iPhone could cost thousands of dollars more, Jackson.
Wow.
I think so. We talked about this
3x price
back in May. So May 27th. If you want to check out that episode, It's on our account here, Venture Daily. But yeah, Trump he threatened a 25% tariff on iPhones, which would have made them cost, I don't even know how much, potentially $3,500.
Yeah.
Multiple thousands more than they cost now. So 3 times the price. So this could hit consumers squarely in the wallet, especially when the iPhone 17 drops later this year.
Right, and for my next question for Rob, I asked, even with these announcements, analysts say iPhone production is unlikely to shift to the US anytime soon. What do you think it would take to actually make domestic smartphone manufacturing viable?
Look, I think first, if you're going to eat an elephant, you got to take one bite to get started. And so I'm pretty sure we're going to be using smartphones for a while. And every year we say it's too hard and we can't do it domestically. We don't get started. Look, I think we made a fantastic investment in a company called Eagle Electronics that makes connected devices in Ohio. I think we need to reshore all parts of the production process, so not just the finished goods, but everything up and down the chain. Part of that is obviously tracks all the way back to precious metals that we obviously need to be sourcing from elsewhere for now. But if we're going to have a truly domestic supply chain, I think we need to get started right now.
He mentioned Eagle Electronics, and I was like, okay, I'd never heard of this company before, but that sounds interesting.
Right.
Like they do here fully U.S. chip technology for iPhones or for whatever smartphones, any kind of
I see.
device. So he mentioned this. I was curious what they do. I did some digging, Jackson. So this is what I found about them. Check this out. It's kind of ironic. So a Chinese tech company, and we'll get to this, a Chinese tech company called Qusitel, I think, licensed its cellular module manufacturing tech to this Ohio startup Eagle Electronics, marking a rare reversal in global tech flows. Qusitel controls nearly 40% of the global market with IoT cellular models, which is a crucial chip component used in connected devices. And the U.S. is heavily reliant on China for these IoT components. But Eagle, backed by $14 million from the Ohio Fund and Asymmetric Capital, of course, has started their own production of the chips, and they made history. So these are the first cellular modules manufactured entirely in America. Qusitel literally sent workers to train Eagle's team. This was like, I think a couple months ago, so that the startup could onshore a critical part of the semiconductor supply chain. And these, rising tariff threats from President Trump. Now what are they doing? They've entered mass production. So with a stream of new clients, our state-of-the-art, fully automated facilities are up and running, ready to keep up with demand for IoT cellular models, automotive-grade modules, and Bluetooth modules. So it seems like, maybe this is possible. Obviously, analysts are saying it's going to be extremely difficult for any kind of U.S. completely based modular cellular technology, like anything that we're going to create smartphones. That's
building
still,
that at scale, it's going to take a long time.
Yeah, that's
to
still
do it. And the demand is high
out.
right now.
Yeah.
In Ohio, blowing up now too. They have the giant Anduril factory they're building out there. They're building another nuclear reactor out there.
Stargate's
going to be out there, and so Ohio's they're doing something.
Yeah,
finally,
that governor.
I don't know who's the governor of Ohio.
Oh, I don't know who that is.
For my next question for Rob, this move follows Apple's earlier $500 billion commitment, including AI servers in Texas and chip production in Arizona. Are we seeing the makings of a real industrial reset?
I certainly think so. And I think it dovetails nicely with a lot of automation. A lot of the reason why things get manufactured internationally is historically wage rate arbitrages. As capital becomes more important and labor becomes less important to the production function, I think that closes a lot of the cost gap that we've historically had domestically versus internationally. We have another investment in a company called Topologic that helps uses AI to make clothing. It automates a key part of that production process that's currently very expensive and done internationally. As parts of that process become fully automated, I think we're going to see a lot of domestic manufacturing return.
Did you do some digging in Topologic?
I did not. I didn't want it to seem as if we were paid by Rob Biederman.
No, this is paid for by Asymmetric Capital. This whole episode today. It's their whole portfolio and how awesome they are.
Usually when a VC comes on our show and mentions one of their portfolio companies, I do not go do a deep dive.
It made sense for the story though.
For this story, it made sense. And I also just was interested in that. That sounds really interesting. And I feel like Eagle Electronics is doing a cool thing. So I thought I'll look into it. And then I found cool stuff. So I was like, okay, I'll talk about it on the show.
Yeah. For my last question for Rob, President Trump is tying Apple's supply chain to national security and economic strength. How much pressure do you think big tech will face in the coming years to localize production, and who's best positioned to respond?
Look, I think all of the large tech companies are going through kind of an emotional identity crisis now between having a president that is certainly more hostile than previous administrations, including his previous administration, as well as AI. And I think this is a great time, whether you're Apple or Google or a much smaller company, to rethink what your business looks like for the next 5, 10, 20 years and make a blueprint that's kind of sustainably successful in the current political environment, and also one where, the cost of compute may continue to go down so much so that you can really change how a lot of key parts of your process work.
Yeah. Thank you to Rob Biederman for being on the show today.
Okay, so a little more context into this story, Jackson. We've got the Magnificent Seven companies. Yep. You've got NVIDIA, Tesla, Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Apple. Okay, so since in the last year, 12 months, you got NVIDIA on top. They've gone up, I think, over 71% in just their stock price.
Yeah,
okay?
they're a $4 trillion market cap, the biggest company, most valuable company in the world.
Ever. Yes. Okay, then you've got, let's go to the bottom of the list. Okay, second to last is going to be...
Microsoft second. They just hit $4 trillion the other day.
Microsoft second. But second to last is Alphabet. Okay, and Alphabet is up, I think... I forget the exact number, but they are up over triple what Apple's up over the last 12 months. That's how bad Apple's doing at the bottom of the list. Okay, yesterday with this news, Wednesday's news, they got a little bump. They got a 5.5% bump on their stock price. That raises them in the last 12 months to an increase of 3% of their stock price. So they're not doing very well. So why are they not doing so well? Obviously, Apple has not released anything recently that's been super sexy.
Nothing revolutionary in terms of AI, at least.
Definitely not. Apple Intelligence has been disappointing, to say the least. The biggest announcement they've made recently is Google or Apple Glass. It's like, that's just not...
They've acquired a few companies, like maybe 7 startups in the AI space, but like nothing big enough to
and maybe they will, prove us all wrong in the next few months, and Apple will be back on top. But recently, they've not been doing that well in terms of what they're offering their customers. Second is that the tariffs are just crushing them. Okay, so they're like, in the last quarter, they paid, I think it was over $1 billion in just tariffs.
Dang.
And then you've got, so this big deal, like why wouldn't that cause their stock price to rocket up? $600 billion that they're saying we are going to put into American manufacturing, the most of any of the Magnificent Seven. Well, there's two different ways you can look at this. You can either look at it as Tim Cook being very savvy because these were already plans scheduled that Apple was going to do. Now he's like repositioning them as, we're doing this for America on behalf of Trump. He wants us to be America first. So here you go. Here's our America first plan. When in reality, this was always the plan.
We wanted to reshore in the first place before Trump.
So a lot of investors are responding to that and saying that like this was already the plan. Why would we don't need to bump up your price. This was already baked into your price.
I see. Okay.
Right. But then there's another way of looking at this in that because this was already baked into their price, this is not an exciting announcement. So like some people are going to say, this is exciting. He's going to be pro Trump and Apple are going to work together and that should raise their price. But other people are like, no, because this is already the plan. So I think that like you can look at it as savvy from Tim Cook, or you can look at it as like, he's now going to be tiptoeing this impossible back and forth because he's got to both be still producing in Asia the vast majority of iPhone production.
And further, like in the near future, you have to keep
this is not going. They're not going to be leaving China and India anytime soon with their iPhone production, and yet also be trying to like move forward with this America First plan. So it's just it doesn't. I think that like, for the foreseeable future, Apple stock is not going to be skyrocketing.
To make a big splash, they need to do something big, like actually not something they've already planned previously, but something like a big thing in the conversation is acquiring complexity. That would be something that might move the stock. It could move the stock.
Maybe. I don't even know if that would. I think they need to release a physical tech product that people are just super pumped about, like the Switch 2 released by what's the game maker? Nintendo. Yeah, like the sales are just insane, right? That's like great for Nintendo. I think Apple needs their own version of that.
Yesterday on TBP, and Mark Andreessen was on there talking about Apple for a long time of how like they've lagged behind in the AI race, and Mark Andreessen was like, well, this is kind of like Apple's playbook. They are always pretty late to the game. Like they're the last person to the game, like when it comes to the smartphone, right? There were smartphones before the iPhone, and the iPhone came out, and then it just crushed everybody. Now they're coming out with the flip phone.
I think that's a Peter Thiel. I think he was quoting Peter Thiel, right?
Was he?
Yeah.
Mark Andreessen quoting Peter Thiel? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, Mark Andreessen quoting Peter Thiel. He's giving that story, and so he's like, don't count out Apple. Don't count out Tim Cook in this AI race because there's something that could make a big splash.
I understand that perspective, but I also feel like that's sort of like revisionist history. They were last to the game. Well, not at the time they weren't. They were somewhere in the middle. If they hadn't succeeded, there'd be someone else after them that would have succeeded, and they would have been last to the game, right? Sure. So like that whole, I don't know, the mentality of they were last is only because they were the winners, and therefore they were. It's like you only find your car keys in the last place you look. Where are my car keys? They're going to be in the last place you look,
which is always true.
It's always true, right? Unless you're just the kind of guy that's like, well, I'm going to keep looking. I found them, but I'm going to keep looking.
I think they're here. I can see them, but there's a world. They're still in my pockets upstairs. What would that look like in this world? I don't know what that would actually look like.
Right. So I think it's like, sure, they were last, but
I thought this is the best product I've ever seen, but I'm gonna keep waiting to see if someone else can build something better. There's no plans for it, but I know that this is the best thing on the market.
Exactly. All right, well, that's it for Venture Daily. Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you like the show. Like, subscribe, comment, and we're gonna be doing this every single day for the rest of time.
Until the day we die. Thank you to Content Stack for letting us film here until the day we die as well. Whether you like today's show, whether you're an Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, X, leave us a like, comment, review, throw us a 5-star rating if you think we earned it. And as always, we'll see you here tomorrow morning at Venture Daily.